All right. So when somebody searches for your product, the first thing they're going to be looking at is your main image, and that's going to make a difference between whether they click on your product or they click on your competitors and who gets the sale. So to talk about how you can maximize your results and get more people clicking on your images and hopefully buying your products, to come with some real data, I am excited to have Anthony Cofrancesco from PickFu to talk about some real world learnings that he's going to share with us on this topic. So Anthony, I'll let you take it from here.
All right. Thanks so much, Kevin. I'm going to jump right in here and share my screen. We've got some cool content prepared for everyone today. This is what I would call is kind of best practices for main images. We're going to just roll through a bunch of examples. Everyone knows that the point of the main image is to get someone interested into what your product is, convey some important information, and ideally get them to click into the listing. A big metric we're talking about here is your CTR, your click-through rate. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump through a bunch of examples of some of the most common trends we've seen in terms of effective main images. And you'll want to stick around till the end too, because at the end, we're going to be telling you how we can actually use PickFu to do some of these tests on your own. So these are some of the best practices we've seen. This is something that some people might already know, but with your main image, you really want to aim for as compact of a main image as possible, and you want it to be as close to a perfect square as possible. So there's a few different ways that you can kind of finagle this. Sometimes even if your product is tall horizontally or it's very wide vertically, when you're in the photography part or if you're working with 3D renderings, the most you can do to kind of compress those in is going to make your image show up as big as possible in the actual search results. Moving beyond that, though, is the biggest trend we've seen, and we've tested this time and time again with a lot of consistency, is allowing the customer to visualize the product in action. And the thing here that makes this image incredibly effective is that it's not just showing the product in use. The prop that's being used, this green apple, is very vibrant, it's very colorful. And so what this allows to happen right from the first page of search results is even if someone here knows that they're searching for an apple slicer, this allows the brain to process much faster, much more readily that, hey, this is not a product that is going to be in my workshop. This is clearly for peeling the exterior of an apple skin. And so what I recommend doing, and this is very crucial for the main images, is analyze every single element inside this creative asset, which is your main image. And so if you could look at it like this, okay, showing the product on a white background, that's good, right? But think about what's the best way that I can quickly convey information from that first page of search results. Okay, this is getting a little bit better because now it's showing it's not just a tool, it's very clearly showing this is for the exterior of an apple, but then this is even getting better because it's showing the apple, it's showing the props here, it's very bright, it's very eye-catching and engaging. You have to remember that with the Amazon platform, in regards to main images, that the entire platform is white. And so anything that can offer a pop of color that can stand out is going to help draw eyes in towards that listing and increase the probability that your CTR is actually going to go up. We've seen this time and time again as well with the more relevant the action and the more that the customer can really visualize the entire scenario, the higher the preference is going to be towards that main image. And so here we've got this device that allows you to kind of stretch your calf muscle. Option C is good. It shows the product in use. But if we're comparing it to option B, it does a much better, that wide panoramic shot. You can see the person on the yoga mat. Again, what the brain is doing all the time that your eyeballs are open is it's just a giant graphics processor. It's processing visual information. And so the more relevant and the more relatable things that you're sending to the brain, the more correlation the customer is going to have to say, okay, this is the main image. This is the product that I'm looking for. And so we see this work quite well. One thing I do want to talk about, though, is main image implications of this, because I talk about this a lot going around to different conferences. And a question I always get is, okay, well, what about Amazon? What about the terms of service? And so the interesting thing is that there's actually different versions of the terms of service based on what type of account you have and what product you're selling. Some versions are very strict and they say you can only have your product on a white background and no exceptions. But as many of us have seen as well, either we're looking on our own experience and seeing many other competitors that are pushing these lines. But the reason is because there's also other versions of the terms of service that say, and this is word for word, the image must not contain gratuitous or confusing additional objects. And so this is really, really important. What Amazon is really trying to explain here is what they don't want is they don't want elements in your main image that are clickbaity, that are not actually, they're just there to distract the customer. They're just there to pull eyeballs to your listing. And it's actually not helping the customer to make a better buying decision. And so let me walk you through some of the biggest takeaways we've seen if you're thinking about kind of pushing these lines. The key takeaway here is that main image TOS violations are not going to result in a performance notification. The only thing that's going to happen is that that main image, that is the violated main image, is just going to be suppressed, and they're going to swap it out with an additional image. So what I recommend is if you're planning on pushing these boundaries, first and foremost, think about, is this clickbaity, or is this actually going to help the customer to make a better buying decision? Think about that customer centricity standpoint that Amazon wants to have. If you're doing it it's something that's going to help the customer make a better buying decision, you're probably going to be safe, but I recommend having a backup ready to go anyway. What we have noticed, and we've heard this from talking with many clients and even people at Amazon, is that how these main image violations are actually found is not from a human most of the time going through and finding these. It's actually a computer program that's going through and trying to identify white space between the product and these additional elements. And so this version of this main image would be incredibly risky, much higher probability that this image is going to be suppressed automatically, versus this. Not only is this not a distracting or confusing additional item, because no one's going to order this whey protein and say, hey, where's my bowl of cereal? The other thing is this is actually connected to the product itself. So it's much lower probability that this is going to be detected and going to be suppressed as an image. What I recommend, again, doing is think about, okay, having an option that is very, very safe, which is this one on the left-hand side, just a product on a white background, and then have something that's a little bit more risky. Again, what we've found time and time again, and I think the reason that Amazon allows these TOS violations to exist is because in some product categories, it legitimately does help the customer make a better buying decision. It's a more immersive experience. This is the feedback we've gotten from PickFu. And so what I'd recommend is, if you feel comfortable, push the boundaries and see what you get away with. It'll also be pretty clear what your competitors are doing, but this is at your own risk. This is kind of next level stuff that I've only come across very recently within the past couple of months. And so this is actually people taking very important attributes of the product and making it look like it's actually part of the product packaging, when in reality it's not. And so this is kind of makes you do a little bit of a double take here, because they've put 22 grams of protein, they put the flavor of the product, and this is actually not part of the product packaging. What they're doing is they're just trying to put really important information in that main image. So it's one of the first things that your brain processes when you're searching through those first page of search results. And so this is another example of a seller doing the exact same thing. Obviously, these cutting boards are not going to be packaged in this way. They're not going to be shipped in this way, but they've figured out a clever way to make it look like this is their product packaging, to put on additional information that in reality is not actually what the customer is going to receive. Now, again, think of it from a customer centricity standpoint. Is someone going to get these cutting boards and say, well, the packaging was slightly different than what I thought it was, or maybe if this packaging wraps around the entire cutting board rather than just being on the front, it's kind of a visual play, a visual trick here. Not saying to do it, but these are some of the things we've seen, and customers really do like seeing this. A few other tips for main images that I'll give is that if you have a multi-pack item, what you want to do is you want to group the items by easily digestible associations. And so, okay, if we're comparing option A to option B here, it might just be like, okay, well, option A is a mess. Obviously, option B is going to be the winner. But let's break down why that is. And so the reason why this is much more effective is because this is grouping it down by the logical associations in this pack. So we've got the case, we've got the tool, we've got the attachments, right? This is another really good example here about allowing the brain to easily digest what's going on. Again, someone's searching through the first page of search results. You want your image to be very clear right from the beginning what it is. And so if you're looking at the difference between option B and option C here, it might not even be apparent what the difference is. But when we break it down here, we see that, okay, this is showing me that we have the same number of lids, the same number of cups, the same number of stirrers, versus when we look back here, this is taking a cup up in the full space that all of the lids would be in. And so again, what's the way that we can most effectively communicate what's going on here? This is where PickFu is very helpful, is because if you kind of were looking at different images here, you might not even be able to tell these differences, but the panel will tell you, oh, I like that this is showing the equivalent number of each of these. The last thing, I think this is one of the last points I'll make here about main images, is that you want to move quickly on these image optimizations, because with main images, there's really not so much creativity that can happen, right? And what's going to happen is within a period of about 6 months to a year, everyone is going to copy everyone for main images. And let me give you this example. When I created this presentation more than a year ago, I would actually see main images for massage guns that look like this, where it's kind of the massage gun leaning over. It was kind of a little bit messy. Then there was maybe only 1 or 2 sellers that had this really, the tool, the case, all of the attachments. When I go to Amazon now for main images for massage guns, everyone is doing the exact same thing, because they've figured out, what do people want to see? They want to see the massage gun. They want to see the attachments. They want to see the LED indicators on the bottom of the gun if they have them, or if there's lights. And so people have figured out what works. And then over a period of about 6 to 12 months, that whole niche, that whole category is going to be, it's going to be look all identical until someone comes up with a new way to make it look a little bit different. And so if you're still in a category where there's a lot of variety in your main images, you've got, I would say, about 6 to 12 months before people start coming in and really start optimizing and saying, what is it exactly what people want to see from the first page of search results? What works? Because there's something that works. There's something that works less well. It's like that good, better, best example. This is the last real tip, and this has to do with color variations. And so this is just another thing we've shown time and time again, and some effectiveness on the Amazon platform as well, that if you can show color variations from the first page of search results, it's actually very effective. And the reason why is this: if I'm selling a full face snorkel mask, I can't probably have enough room in my title to say full face snorkel mask, blue, red, pink, purple, green, right? It's just going to be, it's going to be way too much. You couldn't ever do that. Versus now someone can come down here and they can very quickly see there either is a color that I want to click into, or there isn't a color that I want to click into. And so what this is actually going to do is it's going to lower your click-through rate, but it's going to increase your conversion rate. So if someone comes to this and you're only selling this silver, black, and red milk frother, and they're saying, well, I don't want any of these colors, then they're not going to click into your listing. But rather than them coming and trying to guess and see what colors you have to offer, it's going to actually detract from people who are looking specifically for a different color, or they don't like the color options that you have. I think the reason that Amazon is so lenient with showing color variations is because it is allowing people to encourage relevant clicks and discourage irrelevant clicks. And this is also not confusing about, am I actually getting 15 milk frothers here? No, it's very clear. There's one box. I'm just getting one milk frother, but it's showing me the additional color variations. Same thing with this. And so what we've seen is that if we're doing a comparison in main image versus having color decals versus actually showing simulated examples of the true physical color of the product, that's what people really do prefer. And so I think that's kind of where we wrap it up. I will say, definitely, we don't give out codes very often for PickFu, but if you either go to pickfu.com/maxecom or you use the code maxecom, you'll get 50% off your first pull. And click up at the top, because in the next video, we'll do an actual live example doing a main image analysis using PickFu, and you'll be able to learn a lot there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.